And good evening. Welcome to Rotary E-Club of District 7710 program. This evening, Tuesday the 25th, we have, and we're very delighted to introduce you to our guest speaker, Jenice Ramirez. Jenice Ramirez began working with the Immersion Spanish Language Acquisition in July of 2013. She has more than 7 years of experience in the public education system and the nonprofit sector. Her passion for education and social change began when she was a high school student. She began to work at a tutoring center for kids with autism and followed her passion to University of North Carolina in Greensboro. Throughout college, Jenice worked with various community organizations to develop a list of resources for Latino Hispanic families and kids with different capacities. She continued her projects at the high school that she did at high school, where she worked as a special education teacher from 2010 to 2013. She carries her passion for education and Isla's mission in her heart. Again, we'd like to thank Jenice Ramirez. She's going to talk to us about promoting bilingualism in our communities. Thank you.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. I hope I could fill up the 30 minutes that I have here and let you know a little bit about Isla, as well as just kind of fill you in on, I try to think of something that would be beneficial to you all to carry on after today. And so I'm gonna get right into it on how to promote bilingualism in our communities. All right. Okay, so Isla's mission is empowering Latino youth and their communities to become bilingual and global citizens through innovative heritage language and cultural immersion programs. We currently serve 175 students in our Saturday Heritage Language program. We serve over about 200 students in our Spanish hour that we serve in the community, and we also serve over 100 kids in our Hugs, Helping You Grow in Spanish baby music program for children. And so our passion is to really grow the need and the benefit for bilingualism within our Latino youth and empower them to give back into our communities using their language and their culture. And so she already read a little bit about who I am. And so I started working with Isla back in 2013, and it just started with 12 students. So we've grown from 12 students in 2012 to 175 students just in our Heritage Language program, and serving over 1,000 children altogether in the last 6 years of me being with Isla. So we actually start our Saturday program back up October 6th. And we've just finished all of our evaluations and have evaluated over 300 children to see if they're able to get into our program for Saturdays. So our hopes is to turn Isla into a sustainable nonprofit by offering other after-school programs and different programs that could self-fund the actual Saturday Heritage Language program that's meant for lower income families. And although we serve majority lower income families, we have a mix of all socioeconomic statuses, because we find the benefits in providing a safe place for Latinos from across all backgrounds, and it's a benefit to everyone that's involved in our Saturday program. And so what I kind of want to talk about today is how bilingualism is shaping our future in business, education, and in our communities. And so we're going to start with business and how linguistic and cultural fluency enhances one's human capital. And so right now, currently in 2018, $1.7 trillion, Latinos have $1.7 trillion in purchase power. So that's a ton of money when you think about business and think about where you're going to focus your business when thinking about who's going to purchase your product, who you should be marketing to, who should you be advertising to. Studies show that Hispanic influence in the United States is climbing and will continue to increase over the years. So with the buying power of the Latino community rising, this means that our businesses should be tapping into this market to be successful. As one of the stats that I have seen most recently in one of the National Hispanic websites is that 1 in 5 kids speak Spanish. So, you know, when we think about how we're marketing our social media with millennials, younger students who are, or younger children who are using, you know, different technologies and things like that, businesses could really benefit from having employees who are not only bilingual, but also have this cultural fluency, who are easily adaptable to working with other demographics in other markets. China recently became Germany's biggest trading partner. And so that just even, you know, reinforces the need of being bilingual, and the fluency in Mandarin would be a valuable asset to some of these businesses who are going global. And so our next spot here is education. So bilingual students develop more flexible approaches to thinking through problems, and their ability to read and think in 2 or more different languages promotes higher levels of abstract thought, which is important in learning. And so the American Academy of Neurology found that bilingualism delays dementia. Penn State University study discovered that bilinguals are better at prioritizing tasks and working on multiple projects simultaneously. One of the things that I have found being in business, being in nonprofit, and being bilingual is that I have a switch that goes on and off. One minute I could think in English, the next minute I could think in Spanish, the next minute I'm speaking English, but I'm thinking in Spanish. So it's something that our brains, when you're learning 2 languages, we learn how to do that. Most monolinguals cannot. A study from the Northwestern University found that bilinguals process information more efficiently and easier than monolinguals. A study from the National Institute of Health discovered that bilinguals often perform better on tasks that require conflict management. And another study found that knowing a foreign language reduces biased decision-making when working in stressful settings and working in a classroom space, working in a business environment. So there are many benefits in education. And not only is the just the ability to code switch, but one of the other things is that we teach, particularly in Spanish, is at ISLA, is how to use some of those strategies that we teach them in reading and writing and math, how to take that over into their other languages, because it is transferable. And so sometimes we see, you know, maybe a reading delay in some of our students who their first language is English, but when we teach them those strategies that they could use, they become higher in their reading ability if it's practiced. And so another benefit is in our community. Being bilingual helps develop more adaptability and social and emotional interpersonal skills. So I think, you know, one of the big things about being bilingual and being bicultural, or just having more cultural exposure, is you really think about how to adapt in different settings, how someone might feel when you're speaking one language and they don't understand another, how to kind of just connect with others and really sense the energy in the room sometimes when you're in a community that might be different from yours, and kind of understanding how it feels to possibly be different in a space, how you need to adapt and be flexible in the spaces and the environments that you're in. And so what we do at ISLA, we give primarily low-income Spanish-speaking students the opportunity to gain literacy skills in their native language of Spanish. And so one of the questions that I always get is, why would you be teaching Spanish-speaking students Spanish? Well, one of the things that we found, particularly in North Carolina, is that yes, a lot of our students might speak Spanish, but they're not true bilinguals. And so they say, well, what does it mean to be truly bilingual? Well, to be truly bilingual, you need to know how to read, you need to learn how to write, and then how to use that in different settings. So there's one thing is to speak in Spanish as you speak it at home. Another is to use it in business. And so one of the things that we like to teach at ISLA is how to use their skill as a benefit and not as something to be embarrassed about, or something to not consider an asset into our community. And so we do a lot of different projects, particularly on building pride in being Latino and using their language and how they can use their language. So one of the things that we like to do every year is provide a career day. And this is where we invite individuals in the community that use Spanish in their career fields. So last year we had, which was our second annual career day, we had 24 professionals from all different backgrounds that use Spanish in their work. And the students saw how, no, it wasn't just Latinos who used the Spanish in their workspace, but also non-Latinos who found the pride and the beauty in their language and how they're able to use it to benefit them in the business world. Another thing that we like to do is Isla Impacta, which is a leadership social entrepreneurship project where we teach students to value not only their culture and their language, but to also value their community and how any little bit that they do can make a huge difference in the community. So one of the projects that came about was our 5th and 6th graders. They created these pop-up restaurants and turned $400 into $1,300. And so they learned about social entrepreneurship skills, they learned about budgeting and financial literacy. And so we taught the students a lot to then give back into the community. So they were able to pick through a variety of speakers and chose to work with the farm workers out in Dunn and see their living conditions and see how they're picked to work in these places and just give back to them. So they use their $1,300 to create their own little care packages with t-shirts, hats, scarves, bandanas, socks, t-shirts, and sweatpants for these workers. Another thing that we do is we lessen the achievement gap between Hispanic and non-Hispanic students. So one of the big things is that's starting to become pretty popular is dual language and bilingual schools or full immersion programs. And so a lot of the times the kids that go through these programs end up getting credit in their middle school and their high school of not having to take Spanish, or they get a certain stamp of biliteracy through the Department of Public Education. And so one of the things that ISLA is trying to do is to make sure that our students also get that credit, because in 1 year they receive 87 hours of Spanish and full Spanish instruction. And so that's reading, writing, science, speaking. And so it's just about as much time as some of our students get in these immersion programs that are not 100% immersion. They are either 80-20, or once it gets to a certain level, they get the core classes in English, and then they get another set of classes in Spanish. And so our hope is, because these students are utilizing their Spanish at ISLA for such an extended period of time, that we could get these same benefits for our students at ISLA. And number 3, support students as they learn about their Latin American culture and heritage and navigate their own unique multicultural experiences. So one of the things that we have found with ISLA when kids first start with us is that they are embarrassed to be Latino, or they're embarrassed to use their Spanish language. And so my number 1 mission, and especially in the beginning of the year, is for the students to see their cultural background and their heritage as something to be prideful about, and to be, the word in Spanish is orgulloso. And it's something that not only is transferable with understanding one's personal identity, but also how they navigate the rest of their time in school. One of the big things that I learned through my school career, I was lucky that I was an Army brat, so I got to travel around and be around other individuals who come from different places. So it wasn't that different for me to be, from a different country, because there was other students in my classes that were from different countries. But I did sometimes feel a little left out, because I would go to my native country, which is home, which is Puerto Rico, and I didn't fit in because I had an accent in Spanish. But then when I came here, I was in my school. There were times where I would go to a new school where I was the only Latina, so I didn't quite fit in there either. And so one of the things that we try to really do at ISLA is kind of change the way the students feel about their unique heritage, and how it's okay to have to be different at home and be different out with your friends, for example. So, particularly in the Latino culture, there are different things that our parents kind of don't let us do. One thing that I always remember is sleepovers. I never stayed the night at anyone's house. That was something my parents never allowed me to do. And I never really understood that. And it's stuff that happens now with our kids at ISLA, and kind of letting them know that that's okay. It's okay that we have these cultural differences, but at the same time, teaching our parents that they are raising children that are in a different environment. So although we have our different culture at home, we also have our different culture just in general, because we have to navigate both, if that makes any sense. But it's one thing that we really try to support our students in. Another thing is to provide Spanish-speaking parents access to resources to raise happy and healthy bilingual families. So one thing that we find within the Latino community is that our families tend to not be as comfortable to go into their students or their child's Monday through Friday schools and really advocate for their kids. And I think it's a cultural thing because for sure when I was growing up, I was placed in an ESL classroom because I spoke, or my last name was Ramirez, and I spoke Spanish. But me and my brothers learned English at the same time that we learned Spanish. And so we didn't need ESL, but they put us there because my parents didn't know any better. And so what we tried to provide is the opportunity for our families to let us know what are some issues that they're having or themes that they would like us to touch on throughout the school year. So we've had anywhere from attorneys, health insurance representatives, dentists, counselors to come and talk about those key topics, navigating the education system, immigration law for some of our families who might have family members that need legal assistance, dentists who our families don't know that they should be taking their students or their children to the dentist on a regular basis. So access to a lot of the information that they ask for. Our organization really is focused on the need of the family and the children, not what we think they need, which is, I think, a big mistake that a lot of organizations and educational institutions have. We think that we know what our families and our students need, and in reality, we could ask them and they can tell us. And so lastly, one of the things that we really like to do is to bridge the gap between Hispanic and non-Hispanic communities through shared interest in the Spanish language. And because there is such an increase in Latinos in the United States, our culture is out there and people are interested. People are interested in learning Spanish. People are interested in learning about the culture and the diversity that is within our culture. Our cultures are very, very different. And it's one of the things that I found out very quickly becoming director of ISLA, that no, not all countries or not all cities in Mexico eat the same type of food, or not all Central Americans have the same type of indigenous people in them, which is kind of silly to think about because most people would know that there are different indigenous cultures within these communities, but I didn't. And so it was something that our kids come in thinking that their culture at home or the country they're from, that's where all of their friends are from. And then come to find out, no, there's a ton of different cultures within our Latino culture and our Spanish language. And so one of the things we like to do is bridge that gap between our Hispanic and non-Hispanic communities through our Spanish hour, as well as we have a immersion soccer club that will be picking back up in the summer, where we do full Spanish immersion and we do cultural events through our soccer games. Afterwards, like we'll have snacks that are very specific to the different Latino cultures that are represented amongst our community. And so here are a couple of pictures. One of a big piece of our program, and that picture here on the left, you'll see with the families, you'll see the pop-up restaurant that our 5th and 6th graders did, where they sold, I believe this group actually did sell tacos or flautas. And then to the right, you see our Isla Explora, which is our science outdoor program that we have. And one of the things that we do there is we take our families at the end of the year on an outdoor experience. So last year we took 221 Isla participants or Isla members to Hanging Rock for the day. The year before that, we took 187 Isla members camping. So we try to do things to get them out of their norm. And for some families, that trip is the only trip that the parents are able to take off of work and actually spend that time for a full day with their kids. Particularly the dads are the ones that end up coming out for that particular day. And then at the bottom here, we have a student with smoothies. One of our projects is about health and wellness. It's called Isla Activado. That was sponsored by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And what we do with that is teach our families and our students the importance of being healthy, staying active. And so we do different smoothies every Saturday morning for them to taste a variety of recipes and try those things at home. And so with our Isla project, my goal is to give our families and our students tools that they could use for the rest of their lives. I was able to learn very early on the importance of valuing my culture and valuing my language, and I've been able to use that in my career. And luckily, it's a passion of mine as well, and I can use it in education, which is something that I really couldn't do all the time when I was teaching in those 3 years that I was teaching at the high school. So we're hoping that Isla grows from this 175 to serve multiple cities. One of the things I didn't mention is that we do serve 6 different counties within our 175. So there's some families that travel up to an hour and a half just to come to our Spanish Heritage Language Program. And our waiting list, like I told you guys, we've been evaluating, interviewing over 300 students. So our waiting list is in the 200s right now. And so we are hoping to be able to expand in the next couple years because it is a necessity. And yeah, that is the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Everyone is unmuted, so please feel free to ask questions.
Yes, this is Gene Perry. What would a typical Saturday look like for an Isla participant?
Yeah, so on Saturdays, what they do is they walk in at 9 a.m., class starts. And so our classes right now are pre-K3, so our 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, kindergartners, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th and 5th grade, 6th and 7th grade, and then our 8th through 10th grade. So they walk in, normally as soon as you walk through the doors, we use St. Thomas More Catholic School. They've been so gracious to provide us a space for free. But we are not a religious institution. And so you walk in, you look at the right, and there is the Isla Activado table. And so the students are able to take a little popsicle stick out of a jar with the exercise and do an exercise in order to win an Isla dollar. Once they win that Isla dollar, they get to use it in their store and purchase some type of toy, some type of art supply that they could use at home. And then they go to class. And in class, between 9 and 12, it is full 100% immersion. So our program isn't organized and it wasn't created to teach Spanish. It's to use that foundational understanding that they have and build on that. And so all of our kids have to have a foundation of Spanish speaking skills in order to be accepted into Isla. And so they do recess, they do, the themes are all surrounded also by an interest of the student. So let's say your child is in kindergarten and he says he wants to learn about dinosaurs. Well, we take one day and we will talk about dinosaurs, but that it relates to the Spanish culture. So maybe in Peru, there were these, dinosaur bones that were found, and then we talk about that. So we really try to make sure that we make it student-centered and fun, because who wants to go to school on Saturdays? Nobody. But, our retention is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at 92%. We had 140 students last year, and about 131 of them are returning. And so we're only accepting 175. So yeah, and we did 300 interviews. So that's they want it.
And how long is that day?
So from 9 to 12.
9 to 12.
Yeah.
Good.
Rhonda, you're muted.
Thank you. I have a comment. I think it's fabulous to have the immersion opportunity with non-Hispanics as well as Hispanics, probably within the Hispanic community that don't speak Spanish, but as well as other cultures. I was a PTA president of a pretty much historically Black middle school, and of course they had a large number of Hispanics, and I was actually interested in the fact that the parents seem, whenever we asked for specific things, a lot of the Hispanic parents would bring it. And I was like, I never see them. I never see them at all. But when it came to providing the equipment or materials or whatever, it was always there.
Yeah.
So then I got curious to know more about the parents because it's like, how do I bring them in? Because certain events I see others, but I don't see these parents. Mm-hmm. So I had a calendar of events, and I asked some of the Spanish students, what are your Spanish holidays? Because I don't even know what they are anyway. And as you said, that's when I discovered everyone says Mexican, Mexican. I had Honduran, Guatemalan. Everybody was in our school, and everybody was, according to us, Mexican. But they weren't, and they all had different holidays. So then try to find something more global, universal. But then I also looked at the American holidays, and what we did was we had potlucks, and those were fabulous because they brought their, every kind of Spanish food that you can imagine. Like you said, I didn't get as far as understanding where each one came from, but it was mixed in with the American. And everybody had a fabulous time, and that's when the parents came. There were more Spanish-speaking parents than American parents to those events, but it was one that I could see the support. And then we tried to work on what is it that you need to connect with the school, because I'm not seeing you. I think the teachers aren't seeing you either. They're very supportive of the teachers, but you don't see them because, as you say, they're, I don't know, whatever the stigma or whatever it is, but that was very interesting. It's fabulous that your program is focusing on a holistic experience.
Well, and I think that one of the things that our education system needs to work on, and this is not just for our Latino community, but for all diverse communities, is how do we speak to those families as the educators, as the principals, as the school board members, as the superintendents. Every family dynamic is different. And so one of the things that we did last year was an education panel on multilingualism and bilingualism, and multiculturalism, and bilingualism, and talked about what can you do to bring those families into your classroom space. And one of the big things that we do is we ask the parents to come in and do a cultural presentation, a 15-minute cultural presentation. Come read us a story from your native country. Come in and show us a game that you played as a child. Come and talk about, your experience with, anything that you did growing up. And this provides an opportunity for their children to see their parents in a leadership role and being active in their education, because a lot of the time, a lot of particularly Latino families, one of the parents always works. If it's not both parents working 24/7, one parent definitely works 24/7. Right. The other one thinks, well, you're the teacher, you told me you know everything, and that's it. That's as far as I need to go. And so when you provide them the opportunity to come in and share something about themselves, it helps bridge that gap and kind of break down those barriers, even if there is a language barrier. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we've really worked on our parents, and down to how to have a parent-teacher conference to talk about how do you ask questions instead of just saying, oh, okay, you told me that my child isn't behaving, so he's not behaving. Or you told me my child can't read, he can't read. Well, no, start asking some questions, because teachers don't know everything. They have 26 to 30 kids in the classroom space. Sometimes they forget about, Susie in the corner there who's quiet. So, it's about being a little proactive and showing how it is something that you should be doing in the classroom.
Right. I did understand from one of the perspectives of one of the bilingual parents that the culture respects the teachers at such a level that they're not allowed, but they're not, it's not their nature to question the teacher. Mm-hmm. So exactly. That's good to know that you're teaching and educating them on being a part of them.
And what their rights are, because we have rights as parents.
Exactly.
So, Jenice, hi. I'm Lonnie Irvin, and I have a question and then also maybe a reflection. But do you come out and participate in outbound support type events. Like, for instance, we're going to be having a multicultural fair. And it'd be nice to have some of those 24, or we're going to have a trade fair. So to have some of those folks that you mentioned in your career expo, do you work with schools to do
Yes.
those?
So, yeah, we do. We try to participate in different events. You know, for a long time, I was the only employee in the office. So that was really hard for me to be everywhere. Now I'm down to, I'm up 6 employees, so we're able to do more things in the community, which is really nice. And so we'd love to come and, you know, and do different things, as well as connect to some of these business owners and just businesses who use the Spanish language in their everyday.
Okay. Okay. Well, just so you're aware, there are schools like the school that I work at, which is really cool, where the class sizes are only 8 to 10 students.
Oh, wow. So where's that?
Maybe 12 will probably be maxing out. It's called Mary Phillips. And our Hispanic population is, gosh, it's grown. It's really, unofficially, I could probably say 50 to 60% of the students are Hispanics, and they're actually drawn to the school because of its ability to focus really close on all the needs of the students.
Right.
Having said that, one of the things that, in fact, just today, we have kids that are aspiring to be architects and engineers. And so in doing the application, they were communicating with their parents over their smartphones, but they were communicating in Spanish. And so I encourage the students to always drop that that I'm multilingual. And they use that as a tool to say, hey, I have the ability to, it's a selling tool, a marketing tool, which is what I encourage them to do. So, and I think a lot of from a career development, we're encouraging students to use that as leverage. And so there's some really cool programs over there. So I'm going to call you tomorrow and invite you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, architects, we actually have a parent who is an architect, and he's from Argentina. We also have a couple engineers too, who are parents, that, you know, we could see how we could connect. And we've built some relationships with the universities as well. A big piece of our Saturdays is having volunteers from a variety of universities. So we have UNC students, because that's right there. We have Duke students. We have NC State students. And right now I'm in talks with the service learning at NCCU to get some students from over there. A lot of the time in Durham and Raleigh, a lot of the students don't want to drive on Saturdays to Chapel Hill. I guess 30 minutes is too much, but you know, give them options to come out there. And also do college tours. That's something, you know, we promote a lot as well, is, you know, what do you want to do after high school, whether it be a career, you know, career field, a trade job, or whether it is going to college, and how, you know, we should be shooting for these high scholarships that are merit-based, and get our kids active in leadership roles, and see that, yeah, you know, it doesn't matter that your family, you know, came here from wherever it is that your family came from. You could be the next president of the United States if you want to. It's just about putting in the work. So, you know, we promote that.
Any other questions? Good stuff.
Rhonda, does someone have Jenice's contact information? Or?
Yes, we'll have it out. You know, on that list that I gave of all our speakers, we'll add Jenice to the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you could find us on all, I don't know if you see me now, sorry. You can find us on all social media platforms at Isla_Chapel Hill. And then my personal email is jenice@laislaschool.org.
And we'll definitely have that posted along with the presentation as well. She gave that to us. Well, I want to ask if anyone else has any questions.
So Jenice, this is Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
And I know that you're in Chapel Hill. What is your footprint in Durham, and are you thinking of doing anything in Durham, North Carolina?
Yes. So we have a large percent of our students come from Durham. And so right now, one of the big things that we're trying to do is start a full Spanish immersion after school program in Durham. And so my hopes is to get at least 7 schools on board to let me do a Spanish immersion program there, and then hopefully move Isla into Durham, because such a high number of our families are there and are closer to Durham. And so my hopes, like I said in the beginning, is to become self-sustaining. I think one thing that a lot of nonprofits do is we focus on getting grants and getting donors to survive, right? And we gotta treat it like a business. We are a business. We're just a charitable business. And so I'm trying to find different ways to become self-sustaining. And if we're able to find 7 schools to do this after-school program for 60 kids, we can pay for our Saturday program and expand every single year to a new school from pre-K3 to 12th grade. So my hopes is by 2020 to be in a school in Durham.
All right. That's awesome.
And be able to provide Spanish immersion programs for everyone who's interested in their kids learning a Spanish language. And starting there, that's what I would like, because such a big number of our students are there. And I'm getting to know Durham. I live in Greensboro, I work in Chapel Hill, and now I'm spending a lot of time in Durham. So it might be time for me to move.
At least halfway, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a second part to that question. So you live in Greensboro, you went to UNC Greensboro. What happened at UNC Greensboro to help you do what you're doing now? What did you study, and how does that prepare you and help you?
Yeah, so I studied special education, like I think Rhonda mentioned in my bio, and I thought that, so the UNCG does an amazing job of letting you see what your passion is and why you chose to be in education, and how you want to utilize that, right? And so I left UNCG with this idea that I was going to be able to change the world in the classroom. And not saying that you cannot do that, because you can. I just wasn't lucky enough to find a classroom or a school that allowed me to use my creativity. And it was at the same time that that Common Core was coming into play. And as a special educator, they told us that our scores, our student scores were going to affect us, our pay. I mean, it was in 2010 or 2013, it was a little crazy, the things that they were saying about Common Core and how it's going to affect teachers. And I just knew that from what I learned in Greensboro, that I could do more to help students outside of the classroom, but still in education. Does that make sense? And so I found ISLA, and I thought to myself, well, I'm a millennial. They say I'm going to change job every 3 years. I changed it once, and now I'm going into my 6th year at ISLA, and I've been able to teach teachers how to teach, which is one of my passions, is teaching. I've been able to teach students about the benefits of using your culture as a stepping stone, and using your language as, like Lonnie, I think it was Lonnie said, using it as a career, builder, and also connect with these families that think that there aren't resources out there for them. And so I learned that there, and these last 6 years, going from 12 students to 175 has also, just on Saturdays, has also been a game changer. That I am changing the world, just one kid at a time, a couple students a year at a time, and a couple families. So, yeah, thank you for that question, Kevin.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. I'd like to thank Kevin particularly for inviting you to speak for us. I have to say Kevin has been fabulous in getting great speakers. Want to real quick thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Absolutely.
And as you can see my screen, this is just a thank you as a Rotary E-Club for having again shared your insights and what you're doing in our community. This is the certificate of appreciation for Jenice Ramirez, again for imparting valuable insights and inspiration as our guest speaker.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And with that, I'd like to have, let's have Lonnie, if you could, read our 4-way test.
Yes, the 4-way test of the things we say or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And with that, I'd like to say thank you all for your comments and questions. And I want to real quick, there was a chat. Okay, I don't see it there. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.
Hi.
OMG, okay.